We have here some Space Marines, and everybody loves Space Marines, right? But these are no ordinary Space Marines. These are very old Space Marines, probably painted in a time before the classic Marine style was set. Perhaps even before chapters were designed. Now this was a piece used to market Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, and it was painted by Dave Gallagher. Dave is one of the greatest painters ever, and I think you will agree his work is fantastic. The Marine on the left actually has a miniature available. He is known in early material as Brother A Skull, but I think they changed his name later on. It was probably changed again after that too, to a code. It's very sad they got rid of the names, and I wonder why that happened. It was easier, I guess. The weapons look very strange, don't they? They're not your typical boaters. Boaters? My autocorrect always comes up with weird spellings. I think boaters are a type of footwear that your granddad might wear. What do you reckon? Now the Marine named Brother A Skull has a weird backpack. It's less of a marine backpack and more of a box. Looks a bit like a treasure chest. Perhaps this is a link to Space Marine pirates. Oh, by the way, why do Space Marines think pirates are great? Because they are. I'm Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. So it's time again to check out some more Warhammer themed artwork. This time we're featuring a lot of Imperial artwork, and most of it is obviously from Warhammer 40,000. Let's jump in. Our next piece features an Eldar Harlequin on his jet bike. Zoom zoom indeed. The Harlequin has a maniacal grin on his face. It's very intimidating. Now I say it's his face, it's not, is it? It's a mask. His chest armour has some question mark markings. This is very reminiscent of either the Riddler from Batman or perhaps even Doctor Who, specifically the Sylvester McCoy years. Do the dates match up? What years was Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who? In typical hot rod biker style, the jet bike has flames on the fuel tank. I didn't really think flames were a typical Harlequin motif, but maybe I'm not paying enough attention. On the right of the picture is a Chaos Marine. His head looks a lot like Geiger's alien, and I mean a lot. You can see what was influencing the designers at Games Workshop in those days. Also on the left is what at first I thought was a snake, but it's not. It's a coiled up Khorne bloodletter. Coiled up, ready to strike. Hey! Hey look, is that a Rough Rider? No, I don't think it is. It's one of those pirates from an earlier release riding a horse. The pirate riding the horse looks very happy indeed. I think it's because he's on the bad team with the renegades and the orks. Very naughty. He reminds me a bit of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen from Dune. I've always been a big fan of Dune, and it was probably the biggest thing Games Workshop borrowed from when they created their lore for 40k. Honestly, go and look into it. In the background, you can see a jet bike, one of the really old versions, the weird ones. There's a Chaos Renegade riding it. Now I can't say I remember that combination ever getting a release, but I think they'd be quite easy to kit bash though. There's times I look at this picture and I can't work out the actual sides of the battle. Maybe it's just some sort of free-for-all. Oh, and check out the skeleton dressed as a guardsman in the background. Wonderful. Now I think that's why I like a lot of the old artwork. Things back then were so weird and fluid and less set in stone like they are nowadays. There was a lot left to the imagination, a bit like my lingerie. I'm a big fan of that too. Now to me, the hand-drawn stuff is also a lot more visually pleasing than the computer-rendered things. I feel it conveys the atmosphere a lot better. You can feel the artist's emotions, how they've put them onto the page. It's so much more alive. I think that means 6 runs in cricket, by the way. Now here we have a battle scene, a very common theme in Warhammer art. This is a very busy piece indeed. There's all sorts going on here to feast your eyes upon. I love these chaotic pieces. When I say chaotic, I mean busy, as opposed to warp chaos. The combatants in this scene are Space Marines versus Orcs, one of the most classic matchups ever. The derby of the universe, as it were. In my hometown, the derby is Norwich City, who are the heroic team, versus the evil Ipswich Town, scumbags from over the road. Yuck! There's what looks like a Necron with a big head in the top right. He's pulling the calm down pose. Was that a sketch in Harry Enfield? The Scousers? Also, at the bottom in the very middle is a strange man carrying a weird long dagger. Actually there's a beast man too, so it's not just orcs. It's a Warhammer 40,000 Royal Rumble. Royal Rumbles was so good. The rest of wrestling sucked though. Next up, it's
Horus, the Necromancer.
Nope, sorry I lied. Horus the Necromancer was in that AI Horus Heresy video I made. It still makes me laugh thinking about it. Now this Necromancer, and I say Necromancer, he might just be a cultist, reminds me of Merlin in the movie Excalibur. I feel it's because of the headpiece. It's not a big pointy Gandalf hat, it's sort of a caplet. A caplet. Did I just make that word up? He has a familiar on his shoulder, and it's pretty awesome looking. To me it looks like a teeny tiny bloodletter demon, sort of like an evil little monkey pet. I bet he bites. In the background you can see a picture of a lady. It could be a mirror, or even some sort of portal, but he has his back to it, so I doubt it's that important. I've also just noticed the Necromancer has an arm that doesn't match the rest of his attire. It's like a Slanesh arm has been swapped out for his. Either that or he's wearing Slanesh marigolds and he's about to wash the dishes. He needs to invest in a dishwasher, one of the best decisions I ever made. Now when it comes to the Chaos Gods, Slanesh is by far the best. You can see all the little Khorne fans unsubscribing right now. Oh, Khorne is so much better, he's so cool. He's not. The other gods are just so basic in their themes. Violence, disease, and what? Chingy magic. Terrible. I love the idea of excess. It doesn't just have to mean sex. Did I just thrust when I said that? When I first got into 40k, I remember someone telling me that SLA from Slanesh is an abbreviation of Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Apparently that was a group down the road from the Warhammer team back in the day. I don't know how true that is. It might be true, it might be a complete made up lie. Do any of you know? Did any of you go to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous? I think my appointment is at 7 o'clock tonight. Whee! Here we have a Chaos Marine, or Renegade, whatever takes your fancy. His face or helmet reminds me of those fox-themed Japanese masks. There was one in the Persona game I played. I think it was Persona 5. It has a proper name. I think it's an Iniri or Inuri or something. I'm sure someone will be along in the comments soon to help me with that name. The legs on the Marine's armour are especially flared. They're really big, like a pair of sailor's bell-bottoms. Now, do people wear bell-bottoms anymore? I never had a pair myself. If you are to check out his bolter, at least I think it's a bolter, it has a really long magazine. It's probably bigger than the gun itself. What's that all about? Weird. Also, can anyone tell me what's going on with the backpack? It looks like a one-piece with his head. Looks a bit like the back of a Terminator. Maybe it's a Cyclone missile launcher or something? Confusing, but interesting, just like Chaos should be. It's another Chaos Space Marine up next, and it looks very Geiger inspired, doesn't it? The piece itself is very busy, there's a lot going on. You might want to use the term dynamic. There's gunfire, decapitated heads, arms and dreadnoughts, everything. The Marine's eyes are very unsettling. They're staring intently. Who knew Chaos Space Marines were so focused? I always imagined them as quite nonchalant. I don't know how to spell that word, by the way. I wonder if the auto subtitles spelt it right. Did anyone notice? I say the Marine looks Geiger inspired because of that pipe coming out of his face, or mask, or helmet. It looks a lot like the space jockey from Alien. Although don't gas masks look the same too? And we don't accuse gas mask wearers of looking Geiger-esque. Our renegade is wearing armour with a very strange shoulder pad. It looks sort of bubbly, almost organic. Could be a load of eyes or something. It reminds me of frog spawn. I suppose it could be chainmail. Ever since I was a young boy, I've always had a fascination with aquatics. So when it was frog spawn season, we always used to take a little trip down to the local ponds and lakes and see if we could catch some for our ponds. It's probably illegal these days. It might have even been illegal then. We had no idea. We just thought it was fun. Now, someone told me this next piece features what is known as a space eunuch. Not the sort of name you would want yourself, really, is it? Our eunuch has a really big head, and along with his big head, he's also carrying a head. I assume it was his latest victim. Maybe he mentioned his name. He looks a bit worried about the head in his hand. Maybe he cut the wrong head off. Maybe he found the head on the floor. Either way, he doesn't look pleased. If you look at his leg, you can probably see some unintentional faces. There's an unhappy looking face on his knee, and yet there's a happy smiling face on his foot. Now this piece of art exists as a miniature. It's from a very early Warhammer 40,000 release, and I think it might have been in the Adventurers line. I would have to double check that for you, but I bet again there's an Oldhammer expert here in the comments somewhere. This is an orc, a space orc raider. It's based on the miniatures in the old orc box set RTB02 Space Orc Raiders, one of the best box sets ever, by the way. The helmet our orc is wearing always reminds me of those old cartoons where a child is in hospital with a saucepan stuck to his head. Now, has it ever happened in real life? I don't see it so much anymore. In cartoons, that is. He's wearing that really nice looking quilted jacket or armour. It has a sort of diamond pattern. I always thought it looked really nice, and I want to see it make a comeback. What do you guys think? The weapon the orc is holding looks quite unusual. I can't tell if it's a plasma gun or a bolter. Bolters did look a bit weird in the early years, so it's quite possible, although that barrel tip looks a bit plasma. If anyone knows, again, let us all know in the comments below. Now, I think the old Space Orc Raiders were pre-clan. There was no Bad Moon or Goth or Snakebite or any of those. Those guys came a couple of years down the line with the big Orc range refresh, with a couple of books like Warg the Orcs and what was the other one? Here We Go? I need to try and get hold of those. They're very expensive on the Bay of E. Are they worth buying? I'm assuming a couple of you out there have it, or those. I think this next piece of art depicts some sort of chaos cultist or sorcerer. Sadly, he doesn't look very happy. He's got quite the grumpy look on his face, which is a shame as he looks like an extra from Mad Max. The Mad Max movies are some of my favourite movies, and if you haven't seen them, I strongly suggest going to give them a watch. Now, when it comes to this guy's choice in Chaos Gods, I think he went with Khorne. I can see a fair few Khorne logos dotted about his person. Actually, on second glance, there's two, both on his chest. I thought there were more. Well, he's still a Khorne fan. Who cares how many logos he has? The big hood on his head looks a lot like the hoods some of the newer Gene Stealer cult characters have. Is there a purpose for it? Or is it just a fashion statement? I guess that in itself is a purpose. His staff doesn't look like your typical wooden wizard staff. Looks a little more organic. Maybe it's an alien's leg suffering from rigor mortis. Maybe. Here's a bunch of bad boys, a proper motley crew. This little lot reminds me of some of the people I used to work with, except these ones look a lot happier and cleaner. I think this is an ensemble of the various non-human characters and races in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. There's beastmen, orks, Gretchen, and Ludo from Labyrinth. They're a bad smell. The Gretchen, bottom left, well I think it's a Gretchen, looks like he has a beard. Do orcs or orky things grow facial hair? Isn't it supposed to be a stick-on hair squig or something? Now Ludo up in the back there is holding what looks to me like a nunchuck. Do you remember when images of those were banned in the United Kingdom? Poor old Michelangelo, what did he even get over here instead? Billy clubs or nothing? Man, I used to love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid, or Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles as it was known here in good old Blighty. I only had a couple of the figures, sadly. I was a big fan of Leonardo. But I spent ages building the vehicles and playsets out of cardboard. I think even Blue Peter did a version of the sewer playset much in the style of their very famous Tracy Island. I think Anthea Turner made that. I remember it well. Well, not that well, because I had to try and remember it. Anyway, you always needed a toilet roll for your sewer pipes. I have one here somewhere. Here we go, here's a toilet roll. You always needed one of these for your sewer pipe. But the interesting thing about a toilet roll is if you look on the inside, it says, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Tony. If you are enjoying the content here on the channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Hey look, it's that Chaos Marine again. And there's been a lot of art done of this guy. Maybe he's famous or something. I always ask this and sadly never get a response, but he has a face in his belly and I want to know if it can talk. Here's Chaos, so I imagine it can. Also, the face reminds me of Krang riding the robot in Turtles. Hello? Another Turtles reference. The guy on the left, I say guy, I mean Marine, is holding his weapon in a way that looks like he's offering it to our main Marine. That's a bit weird. Did he win it or something? The other guy is doing it too on the right. It's not a weapon being offered this time. Looks like a box. Whatever could be in it. A new pair of Nikes? Everyone loves a new pair of Nikes. Oh god, I hope it's not Yeezys. Is this the same guy again? It looks the same, but on closer inspection there's a few differences. Let's have a look. This time the belly face is a bit further up, it's on his chest. He also has tentacles and a long face, a bit like a kraken or squid shape. There's also a couple of big plates over his crotch that looked very beetle-like. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. Is this one based on a miniature? I especially enjoy the octopus riding on his bolter. Check that out. It's having a good suck on those barrels. Let's hope it's drilled. He does need to be careful though. He's got such a long tentacle for an arm, it's touching the floor. He better watch out it doesn't drag in dog shit. Some beautiful artwork there. If you want to see some more art themed videos, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.